All right, so we are going to get started with, I guess, what I will call part two of our core mindfulness skills video series. um, we are going to get started in the first video of this series. If you haven't already watched it, we just kind of talked about what our kind of working definition is of mindfulness and went over a sample mindfulness meditation just to kind of center our mind and really kind of practice what we're preaching. In this section, we're going to talk about the what skills, and just as kind of a not a disclaimer, but just if you're interested in reading more about this, pretty much everything I'm going to be talking about comes from the DBT Skills Training Handbook and workbook from Marshall Linehan. So it's the DBT compliant, just the classic DBT text. If you're interested in doing this kind of work, that workbook is it's everything. It has great worksheets, and some of them are a little bit difficult to understand if you've not been instructed on how to administer DBT. But a lot of them are pretty user friendly. So I highly recommend that as a text. It's not insanely expensive either. So that's where a lot of this is coming from, with obviously some of my clinical spin on it, because that's what we do. So talking about the what skills of core mindfulness. Kind of the most basic way of talking about the what skills is to think of them as taking hold of your mind, is what Marshall Linehan calls it. And the what skills are what to do when you're actually practicing mindfulness. So what to do, kind of samples of what it could look like when you are practicing mindfulness. So keeping these kind of guidelines, these inspirations, I'm not really sure what to call them, but in the traditional worksheet that she uses, it actually has little check boxes. So I think these are all just kind of opportunities to try them out and see what works for you. Some mindfulness practices just don't work for everyone. So, in the practice that we just did, I talked about, connecting to a tree, and I'm sure some of you were just kind of like, no, I don't connect to trees. That's some silliness. And that's okay. That one doesn't work for you. But maybe paying attention, scanning the body is something that works for you. So I really like that these are kind of varied and they really suit different people's kind of inclination. So the what skills are divided up into three, I would call them categories. The first is observe, the second is describe, and the third is participate. So when we look at the observe section of the what skills, we're talking about basically noticing the body sensations. What is the input coming in through your eyes, through your ears, through your nose, your skin, your tongue? What input is being received by your body at this moment? That's one way to observe. Another way is to pay attention on purpose in the present moment, whatever you're doing. So that may be walking, observing yourself while walking, observing yourself brushing your teeth, observing yourself being happy or crying, just paying attention. Another way of observing your mindfulness is kind of by controlling your attention, but not what you see. So the trick to this is pushing away nothing and clinging to nothing. So putting your attention on your feet, feeling the sensation of each individual toe. Sometimes your mind is going to wander, or instead of looking at your feet, you're going to notice, oh man, I haven't vacuumed this room in a while, I should really get on that. It's not about telling your mind, hey, focus, we're focusing on our feet right now. It's more the act of pushing away nothing, clinging to nothing. So noticing, oh hey, I just noticed the carpet. Now I'm escorting my attention back to my feet. And I'm not clinging to anything. So I could cling to that kind of feeling of failure, like I was trying to focus on my feet, but I just keep thinking about my grocery list. That's not a failure. The practice of mindfulness is escorting the attention back. So observing a thought as it comes across your mind, like a cloud in the sky. Hey, there's a cloud, and then you let it pass. Okay? So controlling your attention, but not attempting to control what you see. The next one is practicing wordless watching. That's exactly what I was just talking about, kind of watching thoughts come into your mind and letting them come by like clouds in the sky. noticing each feeling as it rises, kind of like clouds in the sky. Another way of practicing wordless watching is like waves on the ocean. So when you are standing in the ocean, if you've ever had the pleasure of that experience, and you stand watching the waves, have you ever tried to stop one with your body or with your mind, maybe? That's pretty much impossible. You cannot stop a wave. That'd be fighting gravity, which humans aren't very good at, right? So, thinking about waves, if you stand in the middle of a wave, especially a wave that's breaking, it can knock you right over, right? So, wordless watching is kind of like being the person on the beach watching the waves, going up and down, observing their pattern. You know, waves are very specific. They go up in their amplitude, they come down, they go up a little higher, they break, and then they become smaller, right? So not interfering with that process, just allowing it to happen. The last part of observing is making sure that you're observing both the inside and the outside of yourself. So on the inside, what you're feeling, on the outside, what's coming in from your outside environment. Those things are connected, right? But you can focus on one or the other or both. You get to choose. You control your attention. So consider that if you're always someone who focuses inside, but you're never focusing on outside, you're really missing half the picture. Because if you're noticing your body and you say, oh, I'm really uncomfortable today, that's good. That's a first step. But what you might not be noticing if you're not paying attention to your environment is maybe there's something in my environment that I can control. So, I feel really uncomfortable and really unsettled today. I don't know why. I'm just noticing I feel uncomfortable. If I then escort my attention to the room and I notice it's messy in here, it's disorganized, I hate it when it's like this, that might be giving me, teaching me, giving me a moment of understanding how those two things are connected. Okay. So those are some examples of ways that you can observe your mindfulness, kind of what to do when you're being mindful. So that's one way. The next way is by describing. So this is going to add words to those observations. So the first one is quite simply putting words on an experience. So when a feeling or a thought arises, or you do something, acknowledge that. So you can say in your mind, sadness has just taken up residence in my body. It's enveloped me. My stomach muscles are tightening. I've just had a thought, I don't think I can do this, come to my mind. And saying them out loud, either in your mind or out loud, to the room that you're in, acknowledging them. So that's the other kind of thing about describing. I tend to usually refer to it as acknowledging. If you give words to something, you make it real. So putting words on an experience, being very careful that you are labeling what you observe and not the judgment of that. So sadness has just enveloped me. I hate that. I hate that is a judgment. It's not a fact-based observation. That's a different kind of way of describing it. So just sticking with the facts. I feel sadness has come into my body. I feel my stomach muscles tightening. I just had a thought cross my mind. And I don't dive down into that thought. I just notice, I just thought, I don't think I can do this. And I let it pass like the clouds in the sky, right? So the observe and the describe, they go hand in hand. The next way you can kind of look at describing as your mindfulness practice is labeling what you observe, exactly what you observe. So put a name on your feelings. Label a thought as a thought, not anything more than that. A feeling as a feeling, an action as an action. So, I forgot my phone in my car. That's what happened. That's what I label as my observation. Not, I'm having a shitty morning because it's my fault because I left my phone in the car. Those things may feel true in that moment, but they're not an observation. They're a judgment. Okay. So just fact-based. I just had a thought. Interesting. Let it pass. Carry on. I feel really happy today. Good. Acknowledge that. Let it go on. being really careful that you need to basically you're going to have to unglue your interpretation from your opinion from the fact, because we do that as people. Okay, that's a human, it's a very highly adaptive skill. We observe something and we almost immediately interpret it for its deeper meaning or its potential to harm us or someone else, or we interpret it for our opinion about it because that's just what we do. That's how we stay safe. And to be honest with you, it's a very, very strong correlation to managing your trauma. So we are so good at being so hyper vigilant at kind of assessing a situation very, very quickly, because when we're in a place where we are not safe physically, mentally, or emotionally, then we will kind of automatically assess things. You ever feel like you're the kind of person who is always playing the game, 3 steps ahead, right? Because that's what you needed in that environment to keep you from getting hit, to keep you from getting lost, to keep you from, falling all the way down, right? So keep in mind, there's nothing wrong if you have these immediate judgments or interpretations. Just noticing, describe the facts. So of a situation, we want the facts, which are the who, what, when, where. Those are the things that you can observe, the observable facts. So unglue your interpretations and your opinions from the facts and just describe. Remember, as you go through this describe phase, if you can't observe it through your senses, then you can't describe it. So you have to do the observe portion before you can do the describe portion of mindfulness. You need to be able to notice it, right? Noticing is the base of mindfulness. It's the most important, the hardest, and the easiest part. Okay. So the third section, we've gone over observe and describe of the what skills. The third is participating in the what skills. So these are kind of like what we were talking about with our intro. That was a way of practicing participation. So this is throwing yourself completely into an activity. So in that one, it's throwing yourself completely into the activity of focusing on the things that we were focusing on. So throwing yourself into the current moment, not separating yourself from what's going on. So if you're dancing, you're dancing. If you're cleaning, you're cleaning. If you feel happy, you're happy. If you're sad, you're sad. That kind of activity of participating in those things can be kind of hard to visualize. So let's give some examples here. So if I'm cleaning, being mindfully cleaning, which sounds really silly, but it's a thing, guys, and it actually is something I really enjoy. Paying attention. So, as I'm picking something up, I'm feeling it in my hand and I'm putting it where it goes. And I'm recognizing that feeling, which for me is kind of a warm, happy feeling of having put something in its place. It gives me back a feeling of control. It makes me feel good. I don't know. I just get like tingles from seeing something that was dirty made clean. So that's me participating in that experience of cleaning. If I am, talking to a friend, then I'm just talking to them. And if I notice my mind is going, I don't know if I texted that one friend back. And I'm not saying you're not listening when you're doing that. You are listening. We are remarkably good at multitasking. But the thing is that multitasking doesn't always serve us. Sometimes it's vital. If you're a parent, you multitask, and that's the only way to live, right? But this is about taking very careful moments of intentional mindfulness. So you don't have to do it all the time. You have to figure out where you are on that kind of sliding scale of what's acceptable to you. Because it's hard to be mindful all the time. I certainly am not. I do my fair share of multitasking. The other big one about participating that I want to go over and that I always go over in my groups is that how do you participate in feeling happy? How do you participate safely in feeling sad? You have to feel your feelings. One of the reasons that you have to feel them is because they're there, and if you don't recognize them, they have a way of coming out in kind of bizarre places, especially the really intense, kind of what we would usually view as a negative feeling. So if you don't recognize anger, it comes out in really weird places later on. Feelings happen for a reason. They deserve to be acknowledged, and it's just such a healthy way of learning what something feels like. So if you're the kind of person who really struggles to understand the difference, or you know someone who struggles to understand the difference between happiness, joy, excitement, fear, there's a part where stuff kind of starts to get fuzzy. The lines around them start to get a little fuzzy. So you need to participate in your feelings to learn what they feel like. It's a really educational experience. Now, participating safely. So, participating and feeling happy, most often when I ask, like, how do we participate in being happy? People in the group will say, you, you just smile. Okay, perfect. You smile. You laugh, but like the real kind of laughing, like the belly laugh, not like the fake laugh when you're laughing at someone's joke that isn't funny. I was over at a friend's house not very long ago, and she has a 7-year-old, and we were sitting on the couch, and he kind of hollered over to his mom in the other room. He said, we're just gonna be over here. We're just gonna be here on the couch sitting with our happy. And it was the cutest thing. It was the cutest thing. And it's my new favorite example of how to participate in happy. To kind of almost like hold that happy in your belly or in your hands, wherever you feel it, and just love it, to really dive all the way down into it. Feel like you're sitting beside it. I love that as an example, and from someone so small, right? We learn from them. So participating in feeling sad, how do you do that safely? People will usually say, I don't know, I just give myself permission to cry. If you need to be sad, it's probably for a reason. Your body is telling you something. So giving yourself a limited amount of time, right? You can't give yourself permission to be completely sad and transition over to desolate and stuck in that place for days and days, right? But if I'm going to say, for an hour, I'm just going to be sad. If I need to stay in my bed this morning, and that's something that I'm able to do for an extra 30 minutes, an hour, if I need to cry, if I need to just acknowledge that right now the way for me to participate in being sad is to sit with it and give permission. And that's what you need to do within reason, as far as that is safe. And you need to determine that, with your therapist or with yourself, to determine, what is safe for you. But also understanding when you experience and participate in sadness, you notice what it feels like when that sadness leaves you. Okay. So that's a really important part of the practice. The next part is to kind of be one with your doing and kind of be one with what you're doing and completely forget about yourself. So throwing all your attention into the moment. You are, not taking a moment to brush your teeth. You are the act of brushing your teeth, in this moment. Your hand moving, minty tingling, mouth feeling. Does that make sense? I know that this sounds crazy, y'all, but it's a real thing, and it has a highly scientific basis for being so successful in helping people decrease their anxiety, especially, and increase their feelings of general well-being and happiness. So becoming one with what you're doing, which is just another way of saying don't multitask, just be the task. Acting intuitively from wise mind is another way to participate in your mindfulness skills. So doing just what is needed in each situation. If you are, think about yourself as a dancer, so a skillful dancer on the dance floor. You don't really think about, now I'm going to move my right foot, now I'm going to move my left foot. Your body just kind of does what it's supposed to do, right? It thinks faster than you can even acknowledge it. Your mind is amazing, right? So kind of letting yourself be a little bit intuitive. So if your body kind of takes you in this direction, says we need to do this today, go with it. One of the things to really focus on in this stage is to kind of avoid the two extremes of being super willful, which we talk a lot about in DBT, and I'll explain in a second, and just completely sitting on your hands and doing nothing. So willful, I always kind of describe that as that's the I don't wanna, or yeah, I know that's the right thing to do, but I'm not gonna do it because I'm stuck in that. I'm doing it because I want to, right? That's not to be confused with like having a personality that's very assertive. That's absolutely fine. This willfulness is kind of a determination to do something that doesn't serve you, just because you want to be right or just because. So acting from the wise mind. The wise mind is the space in the middle. We call that walking the middle path, and we'll go over that more in another section. Your emotion mind is over here. Your wise mind is in the center, and then your rational brain is on the far side. And it's finding a place in the middle. So your emotional brain is driven by emotions, and it's probably not going to take you into the most helpful place. Your rational mind, it completely ignores your emotional brain at all and just goes with facts and figures, which is also pretty stifling. And then there's this middle path of paying attention to what you need in that moment. So trying to act a little bit intuitively, asking your body what it needs, not being willful, and not doing nothing at all. The last way of really describing participating in mindfulness is the simplest, and we should probably have started this conversation with that. Participating in mindfulness is going with the flow. So responding with spontaneity. It's very similar to that kind of acting from a place of intuition. If you feel like you need something, go with that feeling, as long as it is safe. If you have a plan for the day, you're going to run these errands, you're going to do these things, and you wake up and your kid tells you, Mom, I really want to do this today. And if it's not going to harm your plans, if it's not going to really cause any major problem in your life that day, it's okay to be spontaneous. If your heart says, that would be more fun, yeah, the shopping can wait until tomorrow. Let's go do this. Obviously, there are limits to this, but that feeling of, I think that's what my body and my heart needs today. I'm going to go be present with my kids. That's going with the flow. Even that is just practicing mindfulness. Right? So that is our kind of basic overview of the taking hold of your mind, what skills. Going over briefly one more time. That's the what skills are what to do when you're practicing and kind of what it could look like, because it looks different for everyone. Observing, participating, and describing. And we're going to get started with our next session on the how skills. So I hope you'll tune into that. Thanks, y'all.